Hello everybody, and welcome to Whiz, your family-friendly podcast where we discuss D&D Onslaught, Dice Masters, Heroclix, and the other entertaining games made by WizKids. I'm WizDad. Have you put up your Christmas decorations yet? You should just go ahead and do it. You could pause me, or actually you just listen to this while you do it. But you should probably do it. I will be your guide for navigating the competitive and casual scenes of the WizKids Triforce of gaming. It's Heroclix Friday. We are going to make the final meta gauntlet of 2023 as we head into the 2024 competitive season. Before that, though, let's check out the WizKids progress report.
Kowalski, progress report.
It's December 1st, so that means I'm going to go over what's being released this month. Just a reminder, December's pretty light. We've got a couple plushes coming out for Pathfinder. We've got a Journey Through the Radiant Citadel Monsters box set coming out. And then on the 6th, technically, the Royal Flush Gang Storyline OP Kit and the Spider-Verse Organized Play Kit will be released. I know a lot of stores have already gotten it. So keep that in mind to play some fun Royal Flush Gang events through December and into January, right? Obviously, it's hard to schedule events around Christmas, but those should be hitting your store soon. And then in January, let's not forget that. That's just around the corner, literally a month away. We've got a lot more Heroclix to talk about. We've got the two major iconics, the Sherlock Holmes and the Colossal Kong are coming out. And then we have the Cry for Blood Monthly Organized OP Kit. Don't forget that the next major set for Heroclix is the Disney Plus Next Phase set, which is scheduled for February, which I'm anticipating probably a beginning of February, which puts pre-releases near the end of January. That's my guess. Because, Wheels of Vengeance came out in October, beginning of November, I guess, officially. So that would put us almost 3 months until the next release, which feels okay. It looks like it's going to be a pretty good one because we got the Moon Knight, Hawkeye, She-Hulk, all of those pieces in there, so I'm pumped to see that. I kind of wish still that they didn't get rid of Disney Plus. It really would have been nice to play with these figures together, both sets. And I mean, rotating the first Disney Plus set. I understand there's meta complications with it, and it made sense, but at the same time, it would have been nice to be able to play with both sets together. Other than that, we still don't have any erratas for Wheels of Vengeance, which is a little unusual. I'm going to chalk it up to they're still on holiday break. There's PAX Unplugged is happening this weekend, so I know a lot of people from WizKids are going to be there. Maybe we'll get something in a week or two, I hope, because there are some pieces that probably need to be fixed. Outside of that, just keep in mind that there are WizKids sales going on. There's the WizKids store. They're, what's it called? What are they called? Bricksmiths, I think is what they're calling it. Yeah, Bricksmiths. I mentioned this on the Wednesday show, but in case you didn't hear it, don't forget, you could go onto the WizKids shop. When you buy a brick of Avengers 60th, you get a brick of Avengers Forever free. If you buy a brick of Notorious, you get Batman Team Up for free. If you buy Wheels of Vengeance, you get Spider-Man Beyond Amazing for free. So it's a very good deal. These bricks are $170, so a little bit higher than MSRP, or right around MSRP, I guess. And then you add in tax, you add in shipping, you're looking around $200, a little bit more than $200 perhaps. But add in the fact that you're getting two bricks from two sets, that works out. $100 a brick is a solid deal. Very solid deal, especially since all of these bricks are modern. I personally, if I was looking into getting these, I'd probably lean more towards, if I was to do a tier, I think the bottom tier for me would be Avengers 60th. While those pieces have continued to be strong, Avengers Forever is not as strong as the rest of them. I would say probably, man, it's a toss-up. I'd probably go Wheels for the hot newness, and you're getting the Spider-Man set. Spider-Man's a good set also. So I would probably Man, but Notorious is a good set. I don't know. It's a good deal either way, and arguably, it's the best deal they've done in a long, long time. So if you're looking to get some clicks, maybe some special Christmas clicks for putting under the tree, it's not a bad deal, especially if you're looking to get 2 bricks. Outside of that, that's pretty much going to be it for the progress report. Let's hop over to Fishing with WizDad, where we are going to break down what I call the Infinity Gauntlet of meta. I do this every so often. Let's do the final one for 2023.
Get your gear, little man. We're going fishing. And I mean now.
Okay, so to kick off the gauntlet of what I consider the meta, there's a few precursors that I want to talk about. First off, we have not had significant tournaments happen since rotation. There's been the broadcast kind of unusual event that didn't really have Wheels of Vengeance legal, like all of it for the first round. There was Australia Nationals that happened on the 23rd. So I'm going to piece a little bit from that, from my own knowledge, and from stuff you could see on HC units. Effectively, remember going into Worlds, the meta was really a lot of Prime Spider-Man, Carnage Silver Surfer, Masters of Evil, Scarlet Witch, you had Sarkarian Iron Man, you had a lot of Venom Magnetos. There's a lot of low point, high damage dealers, and power erasers. Going into this new meta, it hasn't really changed that much. Like, it has, and it hasn't. Effectively, you've lost the power erasers. Like, you've lost Agatha Harkness, you've lost Scarlet Witch, you've lost any of the others. You lost the sword, the Necro sword, which kind of made it where you couldn't use super senses and shape change, all of which are that's kind of like a pseudo power eraser. And so we're left with Wheels of Vengeance and Notorious, and obviously the rest of the meta. So what I do with the gauntlet is I name kind of the 6 main things you need to be thinking about when you're building your team. Can your team handle these 6 things, whether it's a team, a concept, or just an individual figure? Sometimes one of the stones on the gauntlet, I like to think of it as the Infinity Gauntlet, might be a whole just concept, a whole team, whereas sometimes it is literally just a figure. So, for example, one of the first things I would say is clearly the number one piece you have to be prepared for is how can your team handle Carnage Silver Surfer? He is still incredibly powerful, 50 points, being able to hypersonic and make 2 attacks, essentially, 12 for 4, penetrating psychic blast, and afterwards he would heal if he KOs someone, which he easily can. That's very, very dangerous. Can't be outwitted. Very dangerous at 50 points, especially since he can't be, like I said, it can't be outwitted, and there's no Necrosword to just get through his super senses. Now, is he impossible to take out? No. If someone is too hyper aggressive with Carnage Silver Surfer, misses their attacks, he can be destroyed. Like, sure, he's got super senses and traded shape change. Does not mean he can't be gotten through if your opponent is not careful. He has fantastic keywords: symbiote, cosmic, heralded monster. Keep an eye out for that. Typically he doesn't get equipped. He can have, obviously, the symbiotes for free. But with Herald, you have the upcoming next phase avatars that could just be played for free. And that would get, the only one we know now is Khonshu, but essentially it would give him, I believe it's stealth and prob, something like that. Keep an eye out for Carnage Silver Surfer. He's definitely the one on the list ever since he's been debuted, and the fact that he heals up so quickly, and once he ramps up to top where he's at 19, having shape change, 19 invincible, 13 for 5, he's incredibly annoying for only 50 points. That was kind of the gimme of the gauntlet list. No way anybody could ignore that. Add in the fact also, I should mention, is while they are not making a point on the list, I should mention the Scott Porters. The Scott Porters aren't going to be their own individual stone on the Gauntlet because they are not, what's the word? Your team doesn't need to prepare for Scott Porters. Like, oh no, can my team handle Scott Porters? They aren't offensive juggernauts or anything like that. They're not going to come in like Carnage Silver Surfer and just destroy your team. Now, don't get me wrong. Power Bomb, Scott Porter with his Pulse Wave and can knock back. He could do some stuff. You just have to always keep them in your mind regardless. All these teams or all these concepts I'm mentioning probably are going to include at least one of these Scott Porters. If you looked at the current meta, the top 100 units on HC units, the white shirt Power Bomb Scott Porter is on 646 teams. The next closest unit is the black shirt Scott Porter, which is on 383. And then the next actual meta figure is 200. Think about that. 231 teams. White shirt Scott Porter is on almost three times the amount of teams as the next actual non-Scott Porter base figure. The reason being is because he has all keywords, which means he can equip one of the rings. That's the big thing. He gives you a 25-point ring bearer that does so much additional stuff. So just always have both Scott Porters on the back of your mind that your opponent probably is going to play one or both. The next actual stone on the Gauntlet, where the first one was Carnage Silver Surfer, the second one has to be Prime Spider-Man. Prime Spider-Man lost the Necrosword, which is what made him amazing, but that does not mean he is no longer good. He is still incredibly strong. 50 points, you ideally play him at 80. 80 is where he really sits. The ability to cross the map on his own and still do a ton of damage is what makes him so dangerous. He has Avengers, Spider-Man Family, Symbiote, Reporter, Scientist. He has, going through the figure a little bit, he has the free places character in a square of different elevation within 4 squares in line of fire. And then the reason he works so well is Free Spider-Man has 2 action tokens, give him a costed action as free. If you did after resolution, steal Spider-Man 1 unavoidable damage. He's got Charge, Flurry, Sidestep. So he's able to really just kind of move up the 10, sidestep, wall crawl, and he's in your starting area. He doesn't even have to charge. He's incredibly good for 80 points. He's not easy to kill. He's got Super Senses, Impervious, and Protected Outwit on that defensive power. So you can't just easily get through his Super Senses on those top clicks. He has Super Strength, so he gets around you by having he's able to kind of hit you for harder if he wants, if he doesn't want to use Flurry. Or he could pick up a popular trick is to play with one of those 1 squares or the Sniper's Nest or something, whatever the 1 square of elevation is. Have him pick that up and place that under your defend person, under your King Killmonger, under whatever pieces you're using to kind of protect the rest. He can place that under to suddenly put your middle piece on higher elevation, removing some of the benefits. You have to be able to handle a hit from him. He does 11 for 4, and that's just with 1 attack. He can easily you can equip him with some sort of more offensive. Now the benefit is that there's not a ton of offensive things out there anymore, objects. We did get Bucky's arm, and I wonder if that is a piece that might see more play, because Bucky's arm, which is in the Guardians of the Galaxy set, gives you close combat expert and super senses, but only succeeds on a 6. I don't believe that doesn't work in tandem with his Spider-Man TA. I don't think it does. It doesn't boost it, but he does have the Spider-Man TA with that power protected out with super senses. But just giving him for 5 points close combat expert boosts him up to a 12 for 5. That's probably the go-to piece for him, unless you really need a sword to give him giant reach or something like that. Either way, you have to be able to counter this, I should say. With the Carnage Silver Surfer, you have to be able to just take the hit. Same with Prime Spider-Man. Can you weather him coming across the field and just pummeling you potentially 12 for 5 twice? barrier can't protect you because, once again, he has super strength, so he could just come up and pick that up. And then, he could sidestep, pick that up, and then just attack you. So it's something to keep in mind. This isn't, once again, the gauntlet is purely for, can your team handle it? And even if you can't handle it well, you should mentally be able to prepare for it. When I'm going into nationals or I'm going into a world's tournament, I understand there are matchups that my team is not favorable in. I ideally want to be in the favorable ones, right? We don't want to, you don't want to be unfavored in everything. But you should know what you would probably do in different matchups. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. That is the point of this gauntlet, is what would you do in these instances? So we've got Carnage Silver Surfer as one stone. We've got Prime Spider-Man as the other. The next one I'm going to call the mystical keyword. This is really spawning from Blackheart. So not the old one, the one that just retired. The new one from Wheels of Vengeance. Blackheart is, you play him at 50 points, and he has the ability free. Choose up to 2 adjacent friendly characters with the monster or mystical keyword. Place Blackheart in a square of hindering terrain within range, which is 5 squares for him. Then place the chosen character adjacent to Blackheart. So he is a better than TK piece, because he brings 2 people along. Now, obviously, there has to be hindering terrain. You could pack your own hindering terrain, so that's not a big deal. But being able to kind of just carry the people up and they be able to go, because remember, we're on the smaller maps, and the smaller maps mean he gets you a third of the way there. You get to place your figures on 6, essentially. Well, you go 1, you go 5 squares to 6, so you place them on 7. So it is effectively a TK for 2 units, and it's free. It's a free action. So for economy-wise, that's great. Now, yes, he can be taken out fairly easily. He's only 4 clicks long. He's got stealth. He's got mystics, but that's about it. He's got invuln. So a 4 damage Pensai is bad. We'll just immediately take him out. Now, I will mention also, I mentioned not having hindering. He does have Brimstone, which he makes his own smoke terrain marker to kind of poof into. So, and that happens at the beginning of your turn. So he's going to be able to move regardless. So for 50 points, being able to kind of bring a mystical piece is awesome. Like, that's great. He's able to kind of bamf up some of these other mystical pieces I was going to talk about, which is Arachnite is one of the more popular ones from Avengers Forever. Don't sleep on Arachnite. Arachnite at 100 points, even 60 points, is very strong. And the reason he did not see a ton of play at Worlds is because the Necro Sword was just so popular. And Arachnite really survives mostly on the fact that he has super senses, he could choose shape change if he wants, and he has invuln. He has, I should say, super senses, and stealth. So, like, he really relies on that super senses and shape change to protect him. He has stop clicks, I get it. He's got 2 for 100 points. But he does a lot of damage. 11 for 4. You could do a charge flurry or a hypersonic. A hypersonic for 10 is great. 5 range. Like, he's an overall... I don't think I need to sing much more praise about Arachnite. Especially since he can kind of hit additionally if you KO something. But imagine him on a team with Blackheart. Blackheart moves him up to space 7. At that point, he can just... He can't exactly charge, because on 7 he would charge for 5. So that'd get him only to 12. But he can hypersonic at that point. And hypersonic up and absolutely take out something. And if he does, roll a d6 if he KOs something. And he can maybe make another attack on another character. So... definitely keep the whole mystical idea in your head, with Blackheart being kind of the linchpin of that, because there are other pieces, right? Like, there's other mystical pieces that are very good, one of which we'll talk about in this next stone. But One of the main pieces I also want to mention for the mystical team is that Ghost Rider, which people have been kind of on the fence about. Is it good? Is it bad? The 048 Ghost Rider, the super rare, the one that makes it where Ghost Rider and adjacent characters can use their powers regardless of opposing effects. Protected Pulse Wave. Power Racers still do exist. You still do have Leech. You do still have Cosmo. Ghost Rider is still there to help protect against that. And he does a decent amount of damage, and he could be brought up by Blackheart and be a hypersonic piece. And then he's got pilot abilities. He's overall a pretty good piece, in my opinion. You could do far, far worse than Ghost Rider here. So I would keep in mind the entire mystical keyword. I mean, as you know, there was a ton of, like, almost everybody in Wheels of Vengeance was a mystical keyworded piece, right? If you were playing in any of the sealed events, pretty much you had a mystical themed team. But if you're just going through all the mystical pieces, you've also got Jennifer Kale, another legacy figure that I would highly recommend everyone getting, because she has the trait friendly characters within 3 squares have. Opposing characters' combat values, except range, can't be modified when attacking this character or being attacked by this character. That's huge. That gets around all the pluses you might get from Scott Porter's. That helps against, close combat expert, range combat expert. When Carnage Silver Surfer's coming up to attack you, well, he doesn't get the +1s when attacking these. Now, she is fairly easy to kill at 30 points. You really have to protect her, but you can do that. It's not that bad. Some other mystical pieces to consider when you're thinking about how your team works. Don't forget Masters of Evil. Spoiler, that is the next part I'm going to talk about. Obviously, they're a key cog in all of that. And you've got, Casey Green Lantern to give the leadership to. You've got, like I said, Arachnite, Soldier Supreme. And then obviously you've got, just Saturnine. 35-point Saturnine is still around. Being able to do some attack manipulation, attack total manipulation. Apocalypse. The 35-point Apocalypse is still legal and is also mystical. So you can build a very nasty mystical team right now. And with Mad Jim Jaspers if you want. And you have to be able to be prepared for that kind of aggressive mystical. Mystical is now becoming a lot more aggressive. The fourth, as I've alluded to, stone on the Infinity Gauntlet of the 2023 meta is definitely going to be the Masters of Evil engine. Effectively, you've got the chases from Avenger 60 are the Masters of Evil chases. Your team needs to know how to handle that. Going against a Killmonger that can just negate your attack is absolutely detrimental. If he hits that, your game could be just done. Once again, Killmonger, for all characters with a trait, when Killmonger and or one or more adjacent friendly characters would be hit by an opposing equipped character, roll a d6. 4 through 6, the attacker misses all targets instead. So you have to know how to handle that, especially if every attacker on your team is equipped. I highly recommend that you do not equip every single one of your characters on your team. Carnage Silver Surfer doesn't need to be equipped. Prime Spider-Man arguably doesn't have to be equipped. But if you don't feel comfortable with that, there are tertiary attackers or even secondary attackers that you don't have to equip. That could be useful. You can opt for the Mad Jim Jasper side where you just don't equip them at the beginning in the event you run into a Masters of Evil engine, and then equip them using his once per game ability. But I always leave one person unequipped. Someone who could go in and deal some damage either to King Killmonger himself or to whoever, like anyone else on the team. But the team really relies on King Killmonger and Mephisto to really kind of swap the figures out. Usually 2 sets are preferred, but sometimes just 1. You could tie into the Masters of Evil the whole Dark Phoenix concept. Do not sleep on Dark Phoenix, we've been getting a lot of good brutes lately. Remember, Dark Phoenix, when she is given a move action after resolutions, a friendly character with the brute keyword may make an attack, or they can move up to half their speed values. But either way, she can really enable a lot of hard hits, and we have a lot of not a lot of goons, a lot of brutes. Some of them are goons, but a lot of brutes out there, right? King Shark, a brute. The Ultra Chase Zod Ursa Non, a brute. Doomsday, I think, is a great piece right now to be considering with Dark Phoenix, in addition to obviously Prime Hulk, right? So keep that in mind. The Masters of Evil train has not changed. It has gotten, I wouldn't say it's gotten better or worse. It's kind of stayed where it is at the top. It is definitely a concept your team has to be able to prepare for. How does your team deal? Does your team deal enough damage to get through the Masters of Evil engine, knowing that with Mephisto, with swapping, all of that, they can heal. They can remove tokens, they can heal. That's their whole wheelhouse. They protect, and sometimes they attack. So keep that in mind about Masters of Evil. Definitely one you have to be able to handle. All right, we're nearing the end of the gauntlet. We've got two more. The fifth one I wanted to mention is Black Lanterns. This is one that has not really had time to shine yet because we haven't had any events, any significant events. Saw some play in the broadcast event, but it's one that I don't know we'll see a ton of play, but one you have to prepare for just in case. The Black Lanterns, keep in mind, with the assistance of Necron, is a monster type team. It allows them to heal above their starting click. The key versions of the team right now is the kind of Batman all-in team, where you play a bunch of the Black Lantern Batmans, you create a grave hindering marker in one, and then boop across the board where you have hopefully another friendly grave marker, and they are able to just kind of all bamf over there, use sidestep, and start flurrying. 11 for 3. They can outwit and do a lot of outwitting. It's a pretty nasty team for these figures are only 40 points. It is kind of an all-in team, meaning that you got to make sure you hit those attacks, because if you whiff on a bunch, your game probably over. They're probably just KOing all those Batmans. But can your team survive the zombie onslaught of Batman? And Necron and other pieces. The Batman version isn't the only version. Superman is still a strong option. Green Arrow is still a strong option. You still got Scott Porters who could be Black Lanterns that can heal them up pretty quickly if you want to go that route. You still have Miss Marvel who keyword cheats and is able to heal up to her higher click value. It's something to consider. Can your team survive the Batman onslaught, or does your team have an answer for figures healing above their starting click and ramping? Kind of like borrowing a Dice Master term. Do you have a solution for ramp? Because that's effectively what Black Lantern is it's ramping up, having a bunch of lower cost figures that you can ramp up to their higher point values almost by yourself, right? With the Scott Porters and Necron, you can arguably do it yourself with support and stuff like that. So be mindful of the Black Lanterns, how you're able to handle them. Can your team survive? That's the key thing. Do you have enough rollouts on your team? Are you playing a lot of low point figures that are just going to die very easily if you don't go first? Obviously, if you go first, way different. But can you handle it if you don't go first? I think that's what I would look at more than anything. The next thing I wanted to mention for number 6, the final one. I'm gonna throw mission points in there, just because you have to know how to stop them. Mission points is still being played. Lucas Van Hollen's team for Nationals, where he got second, his team only lost Watcher, effectively. All the other pieces on his team are still legal. Including, now he lost the Darkhold, so okay. I don't think that was a vital piece. But like the main parts of his team still exist. Now I don't think we've gotten any new mission point pieces yet. So this is kind of I wouldn't call this a stretch of a final stone. It's more of, you got to keep an eye out for mission point teams. Right now, knocking back is one of the main methods. The knockback with Darkseid, Riddler, Frogman, Batman, Prime, all of that. Was Lucas's team. You gotta be able to know how to handle that. You gotta know how to handle a team that doesn't actively engage, keeps you at bay while it does its thing to score mission points. Is it going to see a lot of play? No, mission points aren't going to be everywhere. But you know what? Lucas got second at Nationals, U.S. Nationals. Probably because a lot of people weren't preparing for that kind of team, that kind of mission point team. Always have mission points on the back of your head. How do you get through a bunch of barrier? Like a lot of barrier. How do you handle being knocked back a lot? Can your team handle a lot of knockback? Do you have knockback prevention? Not that you need it on every team, but is there a way to fit it on your team? And that's really going to be what the Gauntlet, I think, is for 2023. As a quick recap, Carnage Silver Surfer, Prime Spider-Man, the Mystical of Blackheart, Arachnite, Ghost Riders, etc. Masters of Evil was the fourth one, Black Lanterns, and then mission points. Some of these mix in with each other. Masters of Evil, absolutely go on a mystical team. Mephisto has mystical. I believe, is it the Doom that has mystical? One of them has mystical that I believe you could do just a purely mystical team with the Masters of Evil. You could also do more of a monster team with the Black Lanterns and some of these other pieces, right? Or you could go non-theme and play a lot of these. It's pretty nutty. But the key thing to keep in mind is, how does your team fare against this, I should say. When I team build, and I have a general concept, so say I'm building Avengers, and I'm like, oh yeah, I want to play this figure, this figure, this figure. I build the team, I sit down, and then I go through the gauntlet and say, okay, say I don't win first player, because you never want to build a team that relies on you going first. Okay, I'm going first. I'm not first player. Carnage Silver Surfer is coming at me. Do I just hope that I survive his attacks with some rollouts? Or do I have a better plan in place? Same with Prime Spider-Man. Same with the aggressive mystical team. Masters of Evil. Do I have answers to getting through that engine, to cutting off the team? Now, another thing I would want to mention is that there are some honorable mentions. These may not be widely played, but they are still very good. First one, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Camo. Camo is from the Notorious set. He may seem very expensive at first, but for 110 points, he does a lot to have 2 stop clicks, popping out a shark, dealing you 12 for 5. It's a lot. He does a whole lot. So keep Camo in mind. Can you survive the 12 for 5 penetrating? And potentially more, right? Like, he also works with other monster teams. Gotham City Underworld, once again, very, very solid team. Can you survive a bunch of vines coming at you? Remember, on these smaller maps, everything's kind of an alpha at this point. We still do have we still do have some bigger maps in the meta, which I wish they got rid of, but yeah, it's definitely an alpha mindset. Everyone kind of gets across the map. And I would say the last honorable mention is probably like Prime Wonder Woman. I've seen some teams with that. Oh, and you know, I'll add Pegasus, the Pegasus Captain America as well. That's kind of like a pseudo power eraser. Keep your power erasers in mind. You've got the Captain America, which kind of does it with defensive powers. You've got Calendar Man on the right month or right day. You've got obviously Cosmo, and you've got Leech. So keep that in mind. Also, don't forget that you have Ace, the Legacy Ace. While she's not a power eraser per se, being able to get rid of Outwit, like other characters, friendly and opposing, can't use Outwit, Safeguard Outwit, or Protected Outwit. So she doesn't erase powers, but she removes Outwit protection. So you could argue it's a little bit of everything, right? So keep that in mind. Like, I would absolutely, when I'm building teams, think about the Gauntlet. Think about what are direct counters for your team. What are pieces that you really have to think about? What are pieces that your team has to be able to handle? And if you have a bad matchup, you need to be doing mental exercises on what you would do in these different scenarios. That's what I try to do. If I'm sitting at work bored, I might occasionally look at some HC Units teams and say, hey, how does my team handle this? What would I do if I went first? What would I do if I went second? I would do that almost every single time, just to kind of have those mental gymnastics, so that way I don't find myself surprised. You don't want to go into a match surprised. Ooh, I didn't expect that. And then you're scrambling to come up with what you're going to do. Try to do the mental gymnastics as much as possible. And I think that is probably going to do it for this episode of G-Wiz. I'm happy we were able to get through the Infinity Gauntlet of the 2023 meta. 2024 is going to be a lot of fun, in my opinion. A lot of good tournaments. I can't wait to see what next phase brings. For the rest of the month, my plan for the Heroclix episodes is I'm going to go through the best of 2023. We're going to go over the different sets, go over kind of who rose to the top, and kind of cover that kind of stuff. Kind of like a 2023 recap, if you will. But thanks for listening to this episode of G-Wiz. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you on Monday. Thanks.